بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأته حمالة الحطب في جيدها حبل من مسد. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Salam alaikum. Inshallah, we're going to recite the Eid Soul in this blessed day, Eid-e Mubahila. Mubarak to everyone. Tawasad da'a, nas'alakum ad-da'a. Astaghfirullah alladhi la ilaha illahu al-hayy al-qayyum ar-rahman ar-rahim. ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه من جميع الظلم وجرمي وإسرافي على نفسي وأتوب إليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا. إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله. اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله. اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا. إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله. اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله. اشفع لنا عند الله. يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا غرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا. إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتبسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتبسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتبسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجبار يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتبسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتبسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي الأسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وسيع الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله فقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. It's a time for hajat. Even if you're not following, please do the dua for those who are in need of dua. Hajat Shariah. Dua for the expedite of Zuhur Agha Imam Zaman Ajjallallah Ta'ala Farajul Sharif. Inshallah, we will do the dua Agha Imam Zaman and then continue with the dua Tawassul. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. اللهم كن بني الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا قائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوات. يا سادتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وعدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي. يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين. لعن الله أعداء الله ظالميهم من الأولين والآخرين. آمين رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد. اللهم أجل لوليك الفرج. رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة مع الإخلاص. Like I always say, those who used to be with us, your loved ones, those who sponsor the program, رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة مع الإخلاص والصلوات. الله.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Eid Mubarak to all of you on this great and special day. Inshallah, we're going to start the program with recitation of some poetry in Urdu and Farsi. Inshallah, we're going to start with the recitation in Urdu by Brother Javed Sayyid. Please help me invite him up with a loud salawat.
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. چند اشعار ہیں صرف 5-10. آج سے کچھ عرصہ قبل نہیں بلکہ 10-15 سال قبل شاید ہم لوگ اس وقت ساؤتھ وائٹ پر تھے. تو بس یہ واقعہ 1 منٹ میں آپ کی خدمت میں پیش کر رہا ہوں, ٹھیک ہے مصطفیٰ؟ تو وہاں ہمارے یا تو یہی قبلہ مولانا صاحب تھے یا شاید ان سے قبل والے تھے. بہرحال جو میں بتانا چاہ رہا ہوں وہ یہ ہے کہ انہوں نے مجھ سے فرمایا کہ آپ آئیں اور کچھ سنی علماء جو امریکن تھے, ایفرو امریکن, تو وہ سنی سے شیعہ ہوئے ہیں تو کچھ بات چیت کرنا چاہتے ہیں. تو میں پہنچ گیا. تو یہ مباہلے کی مطابقت سے بتا رہا ہوں. تو ان علماء سے میں نے یہ کہا کہ مجھے پہلے آپ یہ بتائیں کہ آپ سنی اہل سنت سے شیعہ کی طرف کیسے راغب ہوئے؟ تو انہوں نے بڑا سمپلی کہا کہ ایسا ہے کہ ہم نے ایک دن کتابیں پڑھتے پڑھتے یہ دیکھا کہ پڑھا کہ کوئی اہل بیت بھی ہوتے ہیں. انہوں نے کہا, تو جب انہوں نے یہ کہا کہ اہل بیت بھی کوئی ہوتے ہیں تو انہوں نے جا کے اپنے سنی علماء سے پوچھا کہ یہ اہل بیت کون ہے. تو انہوں نے, جسے اردو میں کہتے ہیں کہ اسے آئیں بائیں شائیں کر دیا, نہیں جواب دیا اس کا ڈائریکٹ. تو پھر انہوں نے تجسس اور بڑھ گیا اور انہوں نے اس کے اوپر اور تحقیق کی. تو پھر وہ مباہلہ تک پہنچے. آل عمران کی 61 آیت کو انہوں نے ڈسکرائب کیا اور پوچھا. تو عرض یہ ہے کہ چند اشعار ہیں. آؤ بتائیں آپ کو کیا ہے مباہلہ. آؤ بتائیں آپ کو کیا ہے مباہلہ. دنیا سے اہل بیت کا یہ ہے مقابل. دنیا سے اہل بیت کا یہ ہے مقابلہ. ایک روز 5 آئے سبا میں نئے شیعہ. ایک روز 5 آئے سبا میں نئے شیعہ. کچھ ان سے بات چیت کا موقع مجھے ملا. آؤ بتائیں آپ کو کیا ہے مباہلہ.
وہ 5 سیاہ فام نو مسلم یہاں کے تھے. وہ 5 سیاہ فام نو مسلم یہاں کے تھے. آؤ بتائیں آپ کو کیا ہے مباہلہ. وہ 5 سیاہ فام نو مسلم یہاں کے تھے. عیسائیت کو چھوڑ کے سنی جو سب بنے. عیسائیت چھوڑ کے سنی جو سب بنے. پڑھنے لگے کتب تو سنا اہل بیت کا. ریلیٹڈ ود مباہلہ ٹوڈے. پڑھنے لگے کتب تو سنا اہل بیت کا. بولے وہ مولوی سے کہ انہیں ان کا کچھ بتا. کی آئیں بائیں شائیں تو وہ شک میں پڑ گئے. کی آئیں بائیں شائیں. evasive answers they gave, and that prompted them to make more in-depth studies and research about Ahl Bayt. And that is the key, to Islam. Obviously, there are many other keys, but this is one of them which is very, very prominent, important, and vital. کی آئیں بائیں شائیں تو وہ شک میں پڑ گئے. اس پر وہ پوچھنے کو حقیقت پہ اڑ گئے. بولے کہ اہل بیت کا کھل کر بتائیے. بولے کہ اہل بیت کا کھل کر بتائیے. ہم کو رسول پاک کے گھر کا سنائیے. یہ اہل بیت کون ہیں؟ قرآن کے سمیت. Two things I'm leaving, that is what he said. یہ اہل بیت کون ہیں؟ قرآن کے سمیت. مسجد میں جن کے نام کے گائے گئے تھے گیت. مسجد میں جن کے نام کے گائے گئے تھے گیت. قرآن و اہل بیت کا دامن نہ چھوڑنا. قرآن و اہل بیت کا دامن نہ چھوڑنا. رشتہ خدا کے دین سے اپنا نہ توڑنا. رشتہ خدا کے دین سے اپنا نہ توڑنا. سن لو صبا سے آج یہ پیغام مسلموں. سن لو صبا سے آج یہ پیغام مسلموں. And this is located in North America's San Jose area, and this is the largest Muslim community center in the entire North American territory, including Europe, obviously, and Middle East as well. Very well organized and dignified. It is a United Nations of Islam over here. I'm saying this because we'll put it on YouTube, and I'm saying this to the Muslims of the world. سن لو صبا سے آج یہ پیغام مسلموں. مباہلہ ہے اصل میں اسلام مسلم. گودی میں تھے حسین تو تھامے حسن تھے ہاتھ. گودی میں تھے حسین تو تھامے حسن تھے ہاتھ. پیچھے علی تھے گامزن اور فاطمہ تھی ساتھ. پیچھے علی تھے گامزن اور فاطمہ تھی ساتھ. عاقب نے جوں ہی دیکھا تو منظر الٹ گیا. عاقب, the leader of the Christianity group over there. So you would know what we are talking about. Aqib, the leader of that community. Aqib نے جوں ہی دیکھا تو منظر الٹ گیا. نجران لے کے قافلہ اپنا پلٹ گیا. نجران, the tribal area and the power over there of Christians. نجران لے کے قافلہ اپنا پلٹ گیا. کر دیتے بد دعا تو زمیں بوس ہوتے سب. कर देते बद्दुआ तो ज़मीं बोस होते सब। यही हैं पांच जिनका कि खुद मुद्दई है रब। यही हैं पांच जिनका कि खुद मुद्दई है रब। इमरान की तू, इमरान की तू। आयत 61 पे गौर कर। Go back, open up Quran and Majid that you read a lot. And I'm saying this to all these 1.5 billion Muslims all over the world. And Aswand, you gotta put it, on a prominent spot in YouTube, hopefully soon. कुरान में है मुबाहिला, कुरान में है मुबाहिला हिकमत के तौर पर। इमरान की तू आयत 61 पे गौर कर। और 14वां ये शेर है जावेद बरमला। और 14वां है शेर ये जावेद बरमला। कलमा वो क्या पढ़ेगा जो समझा ना करबला। वाखिर दावाना अनिल हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन। या अली मदद।
SubhanAllah, SubhanAllah, both cool. Thank you, Brother Javed Sayed, for the beautiful recitation in the Urdu language. Inshallah, next we're going to have poetry in the Farsi language by Brother Hissam Kermani. Please help me invite him up with a loud salawat.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Congratulations on the Eid. It's a short clip in Farsi, inshallah. We're going to say that very quickly. But before that, let's start with the verse of the Quran, chapter 3, verse 61. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فمن حاجك فيه من بعد ما جاءك من العلم فقل تعالوا ندعو أبناءنا وأبناءكم ونساءنا ونساءكم وأنفسنا وأنفسكم ثم نبتهل فنجعل لعنة الله على الكاذبين. نامه نوشته شد ز نبی به مسیحیان، ایمان بیاورید به دین بی مجادله. آخر ولی نشد که بیارند رو به حق، چون بودشان به دست از اهوا سلسله. از گفتگو گذشت و بنا شد که روز بعد هر دو طرف کنند به صحرا مباهله. نجرانیان به یک طرف، اسلام یک طرف، تاریخ بود شاهد این رزم و قائله. دیدند که پیامبر و خانواده اش، در قلبشان فتاد از این وضع زلزله. با خوف و لرزه دست به دامان او شدند، بگذر ز ما که در دلمان است ولوله. بالا بلند پرچم اسلام و اهل آن، در آسمان ملائکه کردند هلهله. صلی الله علی محمد و آل محمد.
Thank you, Brother Hassan Kermani, for that beautiful recitation. Please give him another loud salawat. Allah. Inshallah, next we're going to have our lecture for tonight. Please help me invite up our speaker, Sheikh Salim Yusufali. Your loudest of salawats.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين وسيد المرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. Respected elders, brothers, sisters, today we are celebrating one of the days of Eid. It's known as the event of Mubahila. And in general this week, from the 18th of the month until around this time, we have what has come to be known as the week of Wilaya, because there are so many incredible events that took place during this week. The revelation of Surah Al-Insan or Surah Al-Dahr, the event of the Kisa and the revelation of Ayatul Tathir, the Eid al-Ghadir, and then what we're celebrating today, the Eid al-Mubahila. So on this occasion, I want to convey my congratulations to all of you. I wanted to say a few words about this celebration first, and Eid, and then inshallah I want to talk a little bit about the event of Mubahila and some of the lessons that we can draw from it and some of the practical things that we can take for our lives, inshallah. So there are some times in history where if we look at the events that took place, they were pivotal events. They were things that forever changed the course of history. And these events, when we look at them from a perspective of Tawheed, that everything is under the direction of Allah, everything is under the Rabb's command. After all, Allah is the Lord and He is the one who commands and He's the one who governs. Then we see that when there are events which are involving the prophets, the chosen ones of God, and those who follow the paths of the Prophet, then these become events which are manifestations of Allah's greatness. And when we look at the occasion of Mubahila, we see that from the perspective, again, of Tawheed, that it is one of the signs of God. Allah Ta'ala in this event is showing us His greatness. He's showing us that when He wants to make the truth be known, there is no one who can come and stop that from taking place. And this is one of the sunan of Allah, one of the traditions and patterns by which He operates. Allah says in the Quran, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, بَلْ نَقْذِفُ بِالْحَقِّ عَلَى الْبَاطِلِ. He says that we hurl truth at falsehood. فَيَدْمَغُهُ فَهُوَ زَاهِقٌ. When truth comes, it turns and topples down falsehood. And that falsehood then is going to vanish. And this is the way that Allah works. If you look at history, whenever there has been the force of falsehood and those who support it, when they strive their hardest to build their empires, eventually they topple. And the event of Mubahila shows us one of these events where Allah Ta'ala is hurling the truth, and for those who want to see it, it's something which is very clear. That's one perspective. The other perspective when we commemorate Mubahila is that what we're saying is that we are people who are committed to following the teachings of the Quran. Why? Because this is one of those events which is clearly mentioned in the Quran. And somebody who reads the Quran and they, just read it for just the sake of reading, just empty recitations, that person wouldn't really care to think about, well, what is the Quran actually telling me? But somebody who's a student of the Quran, somebody who wants to act according to the Quran, they cannot help but to come to this ayah and say that, you know what, there's something here which is great that has taken place. And so when we talk about Ghadir last week, when we talk about Mubahila this week, And we're coming together and we're taking time out. We're gathering. It's part of what we're doing is with this intention of living the instructions of the Quran, of keeping the spirit of the Quran alive. There are ideologies and people behind those ideologies and funding out there where their goal is to erase the events that are associated with the Quran. And they go to the greatest extent. They want people to just forget about it. Just read the Quran for thawab and that's it. They'll even organize competitions for recitation. They'll give big prizes. But the last thing they want is for people to reflect on those verses and to say what actually took place for this type of verse to be revealed. So that's what our intention here tonight is, to commemorate and to, as the Quran says, ta'azim sha'a'ir Allah. There are certain rituals and events that took place in history that have become the symbols of Islam, and this is one of them. And inshallah, with our pure intention, we can be counted this evening as being amongst those people who made greatness and took the greatness of these events and made them even greater, inshallah. Now, when we go in history, we see that there was a time in the development of the prophets conveying the message of Islam where he now is going to invite those individuals and those groups from around the regional area. And he sends a letter to the Christians of Najran. Najran is on the southern border of the Arabian Peninsula. In today's world, it's on the border of Saudi Arabia and Yemen. Now, the Christians had been there for centuries, and they had been, they had grown into a strong group. They were led by their scholars. And when they received the letter of the Prophet inviting them to Islam, it seems like it stirred up a commotion amongst them. They didn't know how to deal with it. And they gathered together and they were consulting one another to try to figure out what is the right strategy to take. What was the source of their confusion? They were people who were scholars of their book. They knew that there would be a descendant of Nabi Ismail alayhi salam who would be a prophet who would be coming to guide them. This was something that was foretold in their own books. And when they received the letter, those who were sincere students, they thought that, okay, this perhaps is from that individual that we ourselves have been waiting for. But, there's times where we know something, but there's a difference between what we know and what we actually act on. And this is a struggle that sometimes we go through. And we face it on a daily basis. We know what's right. It's very clear to us. The proofs are there. The evidence is there. But we still lack that motivation to act on what we know. And this is what we see happens when they get that letter. It's very interesting. One of the relatives, he was a very close relative to the chief of the priests of Najran. When the letter comes and he sees the types of words that are being said by the Prophet, the wording of the invitation, he says to everyone there, he says that I am going right now to meet him. I'm not going to wait for anyone. He gets on his horse and starts to ride out of Najran on the way to the Prophet without any hesitation. When we talk about the concept of intidhar, of actively awaiting, right? Sometimes you see these incidents and you say that, where am I? Right? Here he is, he's on the spot, he gets on his horse, I'm going to go and meet this Prophet who has sent us this letter. Now his relative, who is the chief of the priests, he takes his horse quickly and he goes and blocks his path. And he says to him, he says that this person here, the gist of what he says is that it's likely that he is a prophet of God. But we have this position amongst the people. We have wealth. We have status. And if we were to go and accept him, then what will people say? What will happen to our status? What will happen to our reputation? And when his relatives hears this, he quickly passes him by and says that, that's enough of that. I'm going to go meet him. And history says that he was the first from the Najran individuals who went to Medina. He meets with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he converts to Islam. And after some time, he joins the Muslims and he becomes a shaheed sometime later in his life. Now, amongst them, though, those who stayed back, they were trying to develop a strategy. How can we deal with this? And they said that let's send a delegation and let us go and study who this person is. We know what the signs have been given to us of what a prophet should be like. So let's go and see, how does he conform to those signs? So they send their delegation, and the history. When they arrive, they enter into the mosque of the Prophet, and they're dressed in a very regal and very fancy way. That's part of their strategy. They want to impress with the high quality of the clothes that they're wearing. They do their worshiping acts, their rituals, whatever it may be, and they notice that the Prophet is there and he's very angry. They can see it from his face that he's not happy with what they're doing. And they're confused, right? Because they thought that, okay, we're going to see him, we're a delegation, he would be welcoming to us, he would, be receptive. And they're confused. The Prophet leaves the mosque and they go to, some of the so-called, or, individuals who are there, the companions, and they say that, okay, can you guide us as to what can we do? Because we came here, we actually wanted to meet with the Prophet. It seems like he doesn't want to see us. They said that, well, if you want the answer to your questions, there's one person that you can go to who's going to clarify to you. We'll show you who he is. His name is Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And then when they go to Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says that if you want the Prophet to receive you, then you should wear something that's humble. Right? In that way, then the Prophet's going to talk to you. Now, this is important because the Prophet, through his actions, sometimes it's through his words that he conveys those teachings. Sometimes it's through his actions. And the Prophet is saying here that when it comes to, if it's going to be a discussion about trying to arrive at the truth and what is up with these types of worldly symbols of power, that's not something that the Prophet considers as power. What's powerful is the word of truth. That's where the discussion is going to be about. And when they come now, they come with simple clothing. And the Prophet is very gracious towards them. So they begin to discuss. And for 3 days, the Prophet doesn't openly invite them to anything. He just is recepting, he's welcoming them as a host. After 3 days, then he presents to them the tenets of Islam. And he says that, will you accept Islam? Submit. Islam is submission. They say to him that we are aware of what the signs of the Prophet will be like. We have found all of them to be true when it comes to you and what we've seen, but there's just one issue. There's only one thing that we're stuck on. What is that one thing? They say that when it comes to Nabi Isa alayhi salam, do you accept that he was somebody who used to perform miracles? He would bring the dead to life. He would heal the sick. He says that, of course, we accept. He calls him my brother. My brother Isa alayhi salam was somebody who did perform those miracles. So their question is, well, how can it be the case that somebody can perform those things and not be God himself or the Son of God? So the Prophet explains to them that no, these things were, he did these things bi'idhnillah, with the command and the permission of Allah. And this is part of the kalam, part of the theology of Muslims, that those who commit those miracles do so completely 100% dependent on God, not independent of God. They say that no, that's not something that we can accept. And then they say that, well, what about the birth of somebody without a father? How can that be? He must be somebody who is the Son of God. And to that, the verse is revealed. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن مثل عيسى كمثل آدم خلقه من تراب ثم قال له كن فيكون الحق من ربك فلا تكونن من الممترين. The likeness of Isa is the likeness of Adam. Allah created him from the earth, and then he said, to him be, and he was, the truth is from your Lord, do not be among those who doubt. At this point, the Christians are stubborn. They cannot get past this. And they say that, well, we're not going to accept this. And then the Prophet receives the revelation to challenge them to the Mubahala. Now, you can see here from the verses that the whole point is to establish the truth. How is it that the truth is going to be established? That comes in the next verse. فَمَنْ حَاجَكَ فِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَكَ من العلم فقل تعالوا ندعو أبناءنا وأبناءكم ونساءنا ونساءكم وأنفسنا وأنفسكم ثم نبتهل فنجعل لعنة الله على الكاذبين. Whoever comes to you and disputes with you after this regarding Nabi Isa, then tell them, okay, let's come. We will bring our sons, you bring your sons. We'll bring our women, you bring your women. We will bring ourselves, you bring yourselves. And then we will do ibtihal. Ibtihal literally means when somebody cuts off from all apparent causes and they go straight to Allah. Right? This is one of the things that we're told in the Quran that it's one of our responsibilities is to do ibtihal to Allah. Because when we rely on this person and that person and that thing, these are false hopes. Eventually, essentially, the one who is the commander of all is Allah, right? So we're supposed to do that. Now here, it's being used in the form of making dua to Allah. فَنَجْعَلْ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَاذِبِينَ. And we will ask Allah to deprive His mercy from those who are false, those who are speaking, falsehood. Now, here, the Christians were prepared to do this, right? And they spoke up to each other and they said that one of the ways that, we're going to be able to see how true this person is to what he's preaching is we're going to look and see who he brings with him. If he brings a large army, then that's a sign that he is trying to impress us through people and through weapons and through armor and these types of things. You see, it's kind of like when they came with their clothes, they're thinking that this is going to be something that impresses people. But now they're trying to use it and say, okay, well, how is the Prophet? Is he going to be using that type of strategy? But if he comes with people who are humble, then that's a sign that he is confident in what he is speaking of. They weren't aware of what the Prophet was going to do. The next day, you all know what takes place, right? Now, these incidents are reported in all the Sunni tafsir. I was looking at it myself. It's there very clear. In Tafsir al-Alusi, if you go and check it, it's very clear that the ahadith said exactly what happened. The Prophet comes and the only people he brings with him are 4: Ali, Fatima, Hassan, and Hussein. They arrive at the appointed place outside of the city, and it's the daytime, so obviously it's hot. The Prophet goes to one of the trees. He hangs his Sallu ala Muhammad wa he hangs his aba on the tree, and he and his family sit down, and he tells them that I'm going to make dua right now, and for each dua that I make, then you say Ameen. Ameen means, oh Allah, accept this dua. And the process begins. The Prophet starts to make dua. And the Christians are thinking to themselves that what is it that they should do at this point? And they're feeling a little bit concerned. And one amongst them happens to be somebody they turned to, he was a man of wisdom. So he tells them that, consider the situation carefully right here. The decision you make right now is going to be pivotal. He says to them that here is, this person, he has brought his own family. That itself should be something that tells you, that what is the type of confidence he has in his message. Second of all, if you start to look at what's happening around us, he says that, can't you see how the birds have suddenly gathered and they're chirping in a nervous way? Can't you see how the trees are starting to bend over? Can't you see how the clouds are starting to gather overhead? Can't you see how There is smoke that's starting to come into the skies, and even the mountains in the distance, they seem like they're trembling. Don't you see that this is as a result of the du'as that he is making? How can he be anybody other than a prophet of God? And then one of them comments the following. He says that I am looking at the faces of individuals. This is from Tafsir Alusi. I am looking at the individuals of faces that if they were to ask Allah to take a mountain and uproot the mountain, then Allah would definitely do so. This is the type of purity that's coming from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. And at that point, they decide, they say that this man is a prophet. You know, we are not going to engage in mubahila with him, because we know from our history that whenever a prophet has prayed and he has asked Allah to deprive people of Allah's mercy, that dua has definitely been accepted. And so they acknowledge that he's a prophet, and they go to him and they said that we accept that Isa was a prophet and you are a prophet, but we want there to be some type of musalaha, some type of peace, where we can, keep our own customs, our own traditions, and we can go away in peace. So the Prophet ﷺ appoints Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam as the arbiter. And Imam Ali alayhi salam says that, Ya Rasulullah, tell me, on what basis should I do this arbitration? What are your instructions? And the Prophet tells him, O Ali, your decision is our decision. You make the arbitration however you want, and we will support you. Because the Prophet wants to make it clear who Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is. Anfusana. He's the very nafs of the Prophet. And Imam alayhi salam, he sits with them, they discuss, they come to the agreement, and eventually the delegation leaves. Now, here, the people see that suddenly Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam falls into sajda, falls into sujood. And later they asked him, they said, Ya Rasulullah, why is it that after they left that you did sajda? He says that Jibreel alayhi salam came to me and he revealed to me, he says that, Ya Rasulullah, that when Nabi Musa alayhi salam made that dua where he asked Allah to deprive Qarun of his mercy, the earth swallowed Qarun. It swallowed the wealth of Qarun. It swallowed the family of Qarun. It swallowed the companions of Qarun. And if you, Ya Rasulullah, had made that dua, then the entirety of the Christians of Najran, all of them would have been wiped out from the face of this earth. So on account of acknowledging Allah's bounty and favor upon me, that's why I did that sajda. This is the greatness, brothers and sisters, of this event. And when we go and we look at, what is it that significance of it? One of the points, of course, is about the prophethood of the Prophet himself. That here you have these well-learned individuals who basically are attesting to the prophethood of the Prophet. They're not able to, if they were firm in their beliefs, then of course they would have stood their ground. But they knew that this person was someone speaking the truth. But for those who want to look in the incident and say that Allah Ta'ala is giving the haqq, then they see even deeper than that. What do they see? They say that if the Prophet was to stand alone and ask Allah to remove his mercy from this people, of course Allah would answer his dua. Why did he bring the Ahlul Bayt? Why would he? What's the point? Obviously, he's trying to establish that if you want to know the truth, then these are the people that you find the truth with. Truth is not something that is just found in a book that you arrive at through your own logic. Truth is found and embodied in individuals throughout history. And those individuals will continue even beyond the life of the Prophet in the form of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. And this is the profoundness of the profundity of this event. And it's something which is a lasting truth. Last week we spoke about the wilaya of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. The idea that we want to have this close relationship with them. And we're always striving to make it closer and closer. We spoke about the idea of that wilaya coming about through 3 steps: through knowledge, through love, and then through commitment. These are 3 important things. When we talk about these Eids, the celebrations that we have are different than the celebrations that others have. You look at and say, what is it that typically, let's say in American culture, they have something they want to celebrate. There's a historical event, July 4th, right? 1776 or whatever it happened in July 4th. They're celebrating the independence of America. What does it entail, right? They have fireworks, right? They have barbecues, right? They do whatever they do, and then they come home and okay, we celebrated, 4th of July. Okay, what happens tomorrow? Okay, it just goes back to normal. Our celebrations are something else. Our celebrations, when they happen, they're meaningful. They bring about inspiration to change. What is one of the things that we can look towards changing and perhaps improving is the idea of 100% commitment to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. This is what they want from us. When you know the truth, then you follow the truth. There was one time when Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam, he's sitting with a group of his companions and he says to them, why is it that you sometimes make Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa unhappy with you? So his companions are like confused. They said that, Abu Abdullah is the kunya of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Abu Abdullah, what do you mean? The Prophet, he's passed away. How can we be making him unhappy? So the Prophet, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam tells them, he says that when you commit acts of injustice, when you commit sinful acts, when you do things in a state of ghafla and heedlessness, these are things which make the Prophet unhappy with you. So avoid them. And instead, with your good acts and your commitment, then make Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam happy with you. And this is one of those concepts of, having a leader and making sure that leader is pleased with you, that we learn from the concept of wilayah. It's one thing to say that, to look at Islam and to say that, the Prophet was a great man, he contributed so much and now he's passed away, and then it's just me and the book of God and whatever we do as a jama'ah, as a community. Right? That's not the complete and full perspective that we've been given, and Allah wouldn't leave us without guidance like that. It's supposed to be the case that every moment we know that we have a leader who's looking to us to follow him. And we feel that we are accountable to that leader. There was another incident that took place. One time, somebody goes to see Imam Baqir alayhi salam. And when the Imam allows him into his home, he could see that the Imam was visibly upset with him. He could see that upsetness on his face. So he says to him, Yabna Rasulullah, what did I do wrong? He could tell. So the Imam alayhi salam tells him, he refers to something he had done, something that was not becoming of him, something that he should have known better. And he says that don't ever go back to doing that again. Right? Now, that you can tell that this companion was actually somebody who was close with the Imam, because we know that the Imams are perfect examples of forgiveness and mercy. But for those who are close to them, they also have expectations from them. We hope that the Imam wouldn't be too shy to speak his mind when it comes to us and tell us that this is how I really feel about where you are and what your level of wilayah is, how much acceptance you have of the wilayah of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. So on this occasion, inshallah, it's an opportunity for us to, again, embrace this truth and to put it into action. May Allah Ta'ala help us to be amongst those who truly adhere to the wilayah of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. May Allah Ta'ala hasten the reappearance of the Imam of the time. And by the sake of this great day, may Allah Ta'ala grant us all the hajat and cure all those who are sick from the community and from outside of the community. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لعن الذين كفروا من بني إسرائيل على لسان داود وعيسى ابن مريم ذلك بما عصوا وكانوا يعتدون كانوا لا يتناهون عن منكر فعلوه لبئس ما كانوا يفعلون ترى كثيرا منهم يتولون الذين كفروا لبئس ما قدمت لهم أنفسهم أن سخط الله عليهم وفي العذاب هم خالدون ولو كانوا يؤمنون بالله والنبي وما أنزل إليه ما اتخذوهم أولياء ولكن كثيرا منهم فاسقون لتجدن أشد الناس عداوة للذين آمنوا اليهود والذين أشركوا ولتجدن أقربهم مودة للذين آمنوا الذين قالوا إنا نصارى ذلك بأن منهم قسيسين ورهبانا وأنهم لا يستكبرون وإذا سمعوا ما أنزل إلى الرسول ترى أعينهم تفيض من الدمع مما عرفوا من الحق يقولون ربنا آمنا فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين وما لنا لا نؤمن بالله وما جاءنا من الحق ونطمع أن يدخلنا ربنا مع القوم الصالحين فأثابهم الله بما قالوا جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها وذلك جزاء المحسنين والذين كفروا وكذبوا بآياتنا أولئك أصحاب الجحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تحرموا طيبات ما أحل الله لكم ولا تعتدوا إن الله لا يحب المعتدين وكلوا مما رزقكم الله حلالا طيبا واتقوا الله الذي أنتم به مؤمنون لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم ولكن يؤاخذكم بما عقدتم الأيمان فكفارته إطعام 10 مساكين من أوسط مما تطعمون أهليكم أو كسوتهم أو